flash. To see better, I turned to the room's corner and saw a light column lower to the floor. I heard, "It's all right, we'll save you." Looking up, I saw a blue fairy gently escorting me. A green light veered left as I was going to lift my hand above my head. They hauled me up and toward the right corner of the room, blocking my view. I shook them off for a better view. As a doctor tried to resuscitate me, a nurse put an oxygen mask on my head, and others, my mother, stood cross-legged in the doorway. As I realized the gravity of the situation, the small blue angel said, "We don't have time. We have to hurry." They took me into the column of light, which was thrilling. I closed my eyes and opened them occasionally out of curiosity, since the light's motion made me sick. I saw a dog lead the stairway to heaven in the midst of nowhere. Clouds finally appeared. I looked down and over my shoulder and saw a huge crowd at the gate of heaven. The guardian angels lowered me into a right-side room inside the barrier. Knelt and closed my eyes for a moment. It stopped as I thought it. It was too cold. I opened my eyes to a cloud-walled room. While approaching the clouds, a voice said, "Don't do it. You'll regret it. You'll be lost forever." I turned away, enraged, since I wanted to die. I realized this was way out of my league. This was life in a new place, not lifeless. Teenage me was arrogant and angry. So this is paradise. At least they could have given me a bench or something to sit on. A white marble bench materialized where I would have placed one. I was amazed that the marble seat wasn't cold. A room crumbled when I sat on it. Dark, whirling clouds arrived. The door opened like an elevator. 3 people stood there, silhouetted by the bright light. In addition to seeing, I felt them. While with them, an older woman said, "See, I told you so," to my grandma. Third, a small girl shrieked with delight as she flew in and sat next to me. After hearing the door close, she asked where I was. Her sensitivity and kindness made me talk about my problems, even though I'm bad at it with strangers. I had many adventures with her. One resembled Ebenezer Scrooge's A Christmas Carol. She revealed significant events from my past, things I did that had an impression, and things others said about me that I didn't know. She told me who will be touched by my life and death. My egoistic 19-year-old self remained unaffected. Just as my dream ended, I was in a sunny green field. I heard 2 men and a girl singing Hillbilly. Cut up and laughed naively. I crept up cautiously to recognize it over the grass. A rundown outpost attracted my eye. I smelled the worst as a wind blew across the yard. I finally saw the talking figures, but they weren't human. Jackal faces adorned their overalls. They ran to me as they spotted me. My heritage and identity intrigued them. Someone raised their arm at that moment. As a line appeared, the skies divided. An enormous brown beast jumped out of the sky and landed next to me. He cursed, had 5 or 6 eyes, and had horns on his head. He looked more like a cartoon than a movie creature. His filthy breath and obscenities made him unattractive. He grabbed me and jumped back into the skyhole, but I don't remember what he said. We landed on a TV-like interplanetary platform. A podium-like control panel existed. He believed this area was hell, and that each cube held its own hell for souls. Because humans can adapt to different hells, and others are more tolerant, hell is continually changing, he claimed. Witnessing others' suffering delighted him. While walking along the cube's walls, I was lured inside a small white room with a door and shelves. One lovely male and one beautiful girl entered the room as the door opened. They were friendly and offered to find me something. I normally don't eat or drink in unexpected places. Personally, I need to be completely relaxed before satisfying my needs. After continually declining, I snapped and said, "Sure, a sandwich and a Coke." They returned with a Coke and sandwich. I was skeptical, so they stayed on the shelf. They kept nagging me to eat it. I finally bit in, but I looked to make sure it was what I expected. I could not finish chewing it since it tasted awful. It was so awful I gulped it down and grabbed my Coke. That was awful too. Even I had to gargle. They laughed as I tried to swallow the terrible taste. Funny, I thought. They apologized and promised to find a replacement. After I gently declined, they tried to tell me they were joking and nothing would happen again. After realizing these 2 lovely people were disguising jackal faces behind a clear mask, I instantly interrupted our chat. I saw through their elaborate setup to make me feel horrible about myself. In a flash, I was lifted from the cube and swept away. Satan's no rang in my ears as I descended the platform. I was instantly reminded of all my bad deeds. Because I hurt others, I tried to imagine their situations. I discovered I was insensitive without recognizing it. Reliving things I'd forgotten or didn't care about was excruciating. I was pushed to alter others' feelings. I shivered in the cold. I realized I was already somewhere. My eyes filled with tears as I saw myself genuflecting in a cave. Low ceiling, chilly, damp floor, pitch black. I felt alone and abandoned. I walked around the cave in the dark to navigate. The low ceiling made it difficult to stand or crawl without getting wet. I was too cold to get wet. I saw an amber light ahead. Warmer weather was my hope near this light. I saw more people around the light and discovered a large throng kneeling at the entryway. Fire was inside, I could tell. A man had his throat bound, a woman had her wrists slit, and another had his back of the skull blown off. As I tried to summon one of these beings to speak with me and divulge my location, I heard their cries from the cave ahead. One threatened to put me next if I kept talking. A huge, horrible beast came from the cavern and took them back within. My worry about becoming the next victim grew. I kneeled. After closing my eyes, all my past misfortunes flooded my head and emotions. I knew I couldn't close them unless I wanted this to cease once I opened them. I realized why everyone looked like corpses as I looked around. You cannot close your eyes, talk to others, or rise or fall. Kneeling there requires only toes and knees. You could only comfort yourself by knowing your survival depended on it as you glanced at the flames. An older bearded, balding man in his 40s caught my eye immediately. He was robed. He looked like a monk, so I wondered whether he was Judas. My eyes stung after what felt like an eternity, so I decided it was worth it to endure the excruciating flashes for a temporary relief. Hearing a voice, I quietly cried as memories of my guilty past returned. I asked how, if you ask him, maybe he will save you. The voice replied, "Say it. Say the words, 'Jesus Christ, my Savior in heaven, please save me.'" I did. I repeated the speaker's words endlessly. The screams and flashes stopped. No one spoke. I looked up and saw a man in a huge stone chair. He was flanked by a helmeted winged creature. Left of him was a woman. She was among elderly men. Stars replaced eyeballs on this space platform. I realized that was Jesus and that was the Lord's angel. Left of him was Mary, the Blessed Virgin. Abraham, Moses, Peter, Paul, or another major group member could have been the elderly men. Jesus' disappointment was so severe and humiliating that it touched my soul. To which I replied, "Tell our Lord what brings you here." I explained how I had come to the decision that this world was unfair and that I no longer wanted to participate. "Who told you it was going to be a fair world?" he questioned with that strange look, and I still didn't grasp it. My first wonderful meeting occurred in a large, dimly lit hall when the girl I had met before rushed in and grabbed me. Great entrance. She told me she had something to show me when I asked where we were. People surged out when the door opened. From my childhood religious experience at Versa, I recognized several priests. That recollection returned briefly. We entered when the room was empty. A dark room held a giant round table with a three-dimensional display in the center of the universe. A knowledgeable old man lived there. He said, "And why are you here?" as she led me to him. My partner told him I thought life was unfair since it had mistreated me. After explaining that the tabletop globe symbolized the universe, the stars had symbolic meanings, and their configurations had deeper meaning, he thought my idea ludicrous. The stars at birth define a person's fate and journey. He added that the Lord protects paradise spirits. Material success and expertise determine a person's social status. He stated people are never satisfied with their lives and always want to improve. Heavenly souls, too, are affected. He replied I begged the council to allow me enter the material world at birth. He said I made a convincing argument and enlisted many educated people to find my birthplace, time, and parents. I choose my name and am alone responsible for my circumstance. He informed me I had a deal with the Creator and had to maintain it or else. He said I was ready at the end of his speech. Warnings made me aware of prospective dangers and problems. Backtracking was my only option. Edgewise, I said nothing. When I was 19, I didn't like this. He slammed the door in our faces and chased us out, so I thought he was an angry old man with a bad attitude. I stood before Jesus again on the podium. Most Holy Mother asked my thoughts on the new information. I stated my dismay at being abused, my belief that Jesus was meant to protect me, and my wish for him to fix the issue if I returned. He glanced at me and said, "My son, I cannot cause pain. I can only heal the broken." In my young haughtiness, I tried the "I want to talk to the manager" ploy and prayed God to help. Jesus said, "No one can see God." The Blessed Mother, furious, "You cannot see God," told me to kneel before this great healer and beg for forgiveness. I kneeled. Seeing my hubris shocked and appalled me. As Jesus asked, "Do you know why I saved you from the pit of purgatory?" I replied, "No." He then said, "Remember the old man, the one you thought was Judas. This showed me that you believe, you truly believe." I realized Jesus had always been there with me. He was with me through everything, and my faith meant more than I thought. He saw something in me that I didn't. I froze on the floor, hands around my head, crying furiously. My Blessed Mother told me to kneel and kiss his feet. Best described as crawling with a concrete block on my back. Time would measure my 5-minute crawl as 5 feet. I looked at his feet and saw that they were filthy and worn out, like he had never worn them before. Despite the yellow split toenails, I kissed these feet even though I wanted to lick a baboon's arse. After that, I screamed that I wanted to stay because I could feel the material world pulling me back. Jesus once said, "Give me a chance. Give me a chance to make it right in the end." I was disappointed and thought, "Great, in the end. That means it will be all screwed up until I die. In the end, when will that be?" Mother Mary then talked to me. One quick sentence contained words, images, and feelings. Visions of unexpected events have usually come true. On my way back, I saw a round thing with an eye in the center. Like a clock, scenarios unfolded around it, with people and places moving concurrently. It hit me, this was God, and he had shown me himself like no one else. The vision comforted me despite Jesus' claim that I could not see God. I had the same peace God gave me when I realized Jesus was with me from the start. Re-entering my body, my heartbeat became felt. I felt the aches, heat, and disquiet of prolonged immobility. 3 days in a coma left me immobile. I reviewed what happened to avoid forgetting. After feeling a warm touch on mine, I had trouble opening my eyes to identify the individual. As I grasped my hand, a young girl with long brown hair stood before my bed. After waking up, I asked the nurse's name and location. She was surprised by my description of her, but she said the intensive care unit had no female patients and that no one had been let outside the glass for 3 days. For years, only 4 elderly women worked 12-hour shifts. She said I had died for 6 minutes after 3 days in the ITU. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a dream.